Hi, this is Out of My Mind, Chapter 3. The name of this chapter is Rusty. When he had eaten at a fast food place downtown, there wasn't much of Mrs. DuPont's money left, and Hunter headed again for the docks. Glancing at the library as he went by, he stopped in his tracks. The cedar waxwing was in the window. Oh no, that meant Mrs. Purcell had found a job for him. He didn't want a job now, but he had to go in. Hunter, Mrs. Purcell greeted him with excitement. I have a great job for you. Only for a week, but it's $5 a day. Hunter didn't answer, torn between needing that kind of money and not wanting to give up the bicycle mystery. By the end of the week, someone else could have solved it. Mrs. Purcell told him she had a phone call from Mr. Hammergren, who had just arrived for a business conference at the Grand Hotel. He had brought his son along, and they would be staying at the Beacon Light Hotel. The boy was eager to see the island and learn all about the Indians and the fur traders. Mr. Hammergren had asked the librarian if she could recommend a young man to show Scott around. I told him I knew just the right guide for his son, and that you would come to the Beacon Light as soon as I could reach you. Hunter groaned. This was going to wreck everything. What's the matter? Mrs. Purcell asked. I don't know how to tell a mainland kid about the island, Hunter argued. The librarian smiled. Once you get started, she promised, you won't have any trouble. Oops, my phone fell. You won't have any trouble because the island is close to your heart. Then Hunter had to tell her about wanting to use all of his time solving the bicycle mystery. That's perfect, she said. While you show Scott around, the two of you can do a detective job together. Hunter didn't think that would work, but she persuaded him to give it a try. Wheeling his bike, Hunter made his way slowly down the street. As he went up the path to the Beacon Light, a red-haired boy with blue shorts came down bounding down the steps, his arms wide as though he were flying. He skidded to a stop in front of the island boy, his round blue eyes staring. Are you Hunter Martineau? He asked breathlessly. At the same instant, both boys realized they had seen each other this morning, through binoculars. Hunter's impulse was to get away, but his feet were rooted to the ground, and he nodded. It's you, the red-headed boy whooped. Man, oh man. Are you Scott? Hunter asked him. Yeah, but nobody calls me Scott, the boy said. I'm Rusty. It's swell you came so quickly. How old are you? Was Hunter's next question. Soon I'll be 12, Rusty answered. How about you? I'm almost 14, Hunter said. Well, what do we do now? Said Rusty. Hunter had no time to plan, so he said, I don't know, but you've got to get a bike. Dad gave me money to rent one for the week, Rusty told him, and here's $5 for you for today. Hunter said that was too much for a half a day, but Rusty made him take it anyways. They walked to Emmett's place with Rusty looking around at everything. At the shop, Rusty chose a red bike with the ID number 314 painted in white on the back fender. He paid for the week's rental. Emmett gave him a lock and a key and told him never leave your bike unlocked. If you weren't with Hunter, he said, I would ask you for a deposit of $30. Rusty's eyes widened. How come? Emmett told him all about the bicycles being stolen, and then he clapped one hand on Hunter's shoulder and announced, and here's the guy who's going to catch the thief. What do you mean? Rusty asked. Hunter felt all the blood rush to his face, told the other boy that he was planning on stalking the thief and winning the reward, and said I could take every buck I need, every buck I can earn this week. Hey, Rusty burst out, would you let me help you just for kicks? I thought you wanted to see the sights, Hunter said. Before Rusty could answer, Emmett spoke up. Young fella, if you track this thief and hunt for missing bikes with Hunter, you're going to see more of this island than any tourist. All right, Hunter shouted. All right, Rusty shouted. It's a deal, so let's get going. The boys mounted their bikes, and Rusty followed Hunter as he threaded his way along the horses, bikes, pedestrians, and dogs that crowded Market Street. Phew, Rusty called out. It smells like a barn. Where are we going? To Pontiac Lookout, Hunter answered, to plan our strategy. Rusty wrinkled his short nose. What's a Pontiac doing on this island with no cars? He asked. Grinning, Hunter said, Pontiac was a famous Indian chief. Grandfather told me his name was really Abwandiak, but the whites called him Pontiac. When they reached the cliff and laid down their bikes, Rusty looked around and said, Hey, isn't this the same place you were standing when I saw you through my binoculars? And Hunter nodded. Tell me, how did you disappear so fast? 1 second you were standing there, and the next you had vanished. Hunter laughed, but he still didn't give away his secret. Instead, he pulled out his notebook and showed Rusty all the details he had learned from the 4 rental shops. Together, they studied the facts and tried to figure out how the thief operated. Privately owned bikes, it seemed, were not in danger. Only rental bikes had been stolen. And no rentals that were locked had been stolen. That proved, the boys agreed, that the thief rode each bike from where he found it. But where he hid them was still a mystery. No suspicious bikes had been seen on the ferry boats. Only one bike disappeared in any one day. Why? Was the hideout so far away there wasn't really time to snatch and hide a second bike? The island wasn't really that big. Hunter suggested that maybe the thief came in his own small boat to the yacht club dock and walked from there to one of the popular sites. Picking up a parked bike, he might ride it to the dock, put it in his boat when no one was looking, and whiz away. That would account for 1 theft a day, Rusty said, but wouldn't people on the dock notice and be wise to him? Yeah, I guess so, Hunter agreed. I think our best bet is that he sneaks the bike to a hideout, takes off the license tag, paints off the ID number so it can't be identified, and calls it a day. If he doesn't live on the island, Rusty said, I wonder where he's staying. Both boys were quiet, and they thought for a while, and then Rusty said, well, Sherlock, where do we begin? We could begin to search the island for hideouts. I saw one possible hideout this morning, Hunter said, so let's go check that out. Getting up and grabbing their bikes, they set off along West Bluff Road. Before long, they came to a large empty house with a porch on 2 sides. Because the land sloped, one end of the porch was only 2 feet above the lawn. The other end was 6 or 7 feet high. And there was lattice work that enclosed the area under the porch, and there was a door. Hunter pointed out that bikes could be stored under there, hidden by the ivy growing over the lattice. The thief could ride along the road, put the bike under the porch, lock the door. He would have it made. The boys found there was a padlock on the door, so they wondered, had the owner put it there, or did the thief? The boys began peering through the ivy leaves, pushing them apart with their fingers. Under the porch, it was dark. After rounding the corner, Hunter found a place under one root where the ivy had died. He pressed his face to the uncovered lattice and let out a yelp of excitement. What is it? Rusty cried. Let me see. There's a big tarp covering something, and there's a bicycle wheel sticking out from under the tarp. Hunter stood aside to give Rusty a look. It's the missing bikes for sure, the boy yelled. You are the tops. Should we go tell the police now? Not yet, Hunter cautioned. We'd better check it out first. There's got to be a way to get in there, even if we have to dig. They continued to circle the porch. At the farthest end, they located the place where the lattice had been broken. The hole was big enough for a small dog, but Rusty was on his knees, forcing his body through the opening. His shirt caught on a jagged piece of wood, and he got stuck. He couldn't go in, and he couldn't back out. Hunter had to break off a small piece of the lattice. Then Rusty was free and moved forward. Hunter followed him in. They crawled until there was room to stand up. When they reached their goal, they grinned at each other in the gloomy light. No doubt about it, the heavy tarp was covering several bikes. Hunter could almost feel the $51 bills in his hand. Rusty reached out to lift up the tarp. Hold it, Hunter commanded. He suddenly saw a way to get all $100. We shouldn't disturb anything. We don't want the thief to suspect anyone has been here. Then we'll figure out a way to trap him when he comes back with another bike. Yeah, Rusty said. But shouldn't we just see if all the bikes are here? I guess that's good, said Hunter, but lift the cover carefully. In a slow motion, Rusty raised the tarp a foot or 2. Then his face turned red until it matched his hair. There were only 6 bikes there, and some of them were kids' bikes. All of them were coated with a thick layer of dust and spider webs. They had been there for years. They're the wrong bikes, Rusty cried. Hunter felt like a pricked balloon. He didn't say a word as they made their way out to the outside. He was remembering other disappointments. Grandfather had told him you couldn't expect to win the first time. By the time their bikes were unlocked, Hunter was ready with another plan. He told Rusty about a big private estate called Stonecliff that was a couple miles farther on. There was a mansion and a lodge for guests and lots of carriage houses, stables, barns, and workshops. Lots of places to hide stolen bikes. Sounds like a movie set, Rusty remarked. But with so many people, how could the thief escape being seen? Hunter answered. I keep saying the wrong name. The millionaires who built the place died many years ago. No one lives there now but a grouchy caretaker and his dog. Rusty's eyes lit up. Great, but what if the caretaker sees us and sets his dog on that? He won't, Hunter promised. I'll see to that.